right now. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome the UFO in the Know audience. Today I have a special guest, Jesse Peak, here. He's an Army veteran. He's heavily involved in MUFON, and he has a couple UAP slash UFO related groups that he's involved in that let him talk about. I thought first we could just kind of, share your own personal story. I feel like with this UFO thing, there's like a progression of belief. I feel like, and for me, it started with, and I think a lot of people, it's like, so the 2017 article, the Navy New York Times article, the Navy admitted they had chased this
Right.
UFO. And so I think everybody is now fully aware that is a reality. That's a real thing. There are real UFOs. But then I think like, okay, so the average person and me, even me at some point was like, okay, well, there's definitely UFOs. We definitely know that they exist. We don't know what they are. And then I think the belief moves further. And then you start to think, well, there's this evidence, or at least a lot of whistleblowers saying that the U.S. government or some element within the U.S. government has these UFOs and is studying them, possibly has some kind of reverse engineered technology from them that we don't know about. And then even further, which I was kind of mind blowing to me, because in my stuff that I've read, I've never read the details about this, but in the latest David Grush whistleblower interview, he mentioned something about some kind of alliance between whoever's involved with this government group and the extraterrestrials, which I thought was just mind blowing. I feel like that's like once I started to consider that seriously or think about that, it just made me think, wow, like this thing is a lot bigger than I thought. This is like scary almost. And I just like to hear from you. How did you walk down that path of believing, or did you always believe? Was there never any doubt in your mind that this was happening? Or
Well, yeah, I mean, I had some stuff happen to me when I was younger, but I never really looked at it as UFO stuff. I kind of talk about it. I'm writing a book now, but I talk about it in the book, and it's like, we're brought up with Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and things like that. So you can when you see a light on Christmas Eve, that's what you'd say. It's Santa Claus, right? And I had one of them witnesses, or I witnessed something very strange on Christmas Eve one year, and it was a huge bright light. It wasn't moving left to right or anywhere. It just dipped down out of the clouds, blew up real bright, kind of hovered there for a minute, went up in the clouds, came back down, and then went back up. And of course, I was like, that's Santa Claus, he's on his way to my house. But now that I look back, I'm like, that was a UFO sighting, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I've always kind of been into the topic as I got older, hearing about UFOs, but I never knew there was a community until very late in my life. When I've been in the field for about 8-9 years now, really researching the subject. And then had two sightings. Both of them were with another person, so I was able to get that corroborated. So that kind of made it for me. But then I worked for the MUFON ERT, working with experiencers on a daily basis, and to hear these stories and to even investigate regular sighting cases, I look at it as there may be 100 million of them, but all it takes is one of them for it to be real. You know what I mean? Right. And I really think that there's something going on here. The government, especially when they covered up Roswell back in 47 when that happened, it wasn't just anything, So I've always believed that there's things out there and other civilizations and things like that. I just can't see us being the only planet with living beings, whether it even be microbial or things that we see under a microscope. But I definitely believe we're not alone.
Right,
for sure. Now I did see David Grush, the whole interview and everything with that. Now, when Lou Elizondo came out, anybody that's in the intelligence field and comes out, I kind of like let it go for a while and kind of just sit back and pay attention because, we've had Lou Elizondo come out. We've had Anjali. I don't know if you remember Anjali when she came out. She did the press conference on the Hill. She's the experiencer in the wheelchair. She worked in the intelligence community. And then you got John Ramirez. He came out. He was in the CIA, and now we have
Mhm.
David Grush coming out. And all four of these people said they worked in the intelligence field. They knew about UFOs, and they felt that it wasn't being reported to the public the right way. So they quit their jobs from the intelligence community to come into the
Mhm.
UFO field. And that alone right there kind of is like a big question mark to me. Not saying I don't believe them, but
Mhm.
would you really leave your entire career that you've worked around and worked your way up through the system and gotten to where you are today just to quit and come into ufology? Um,
Yeah.
so I question that, you know what I mean? And that's why I kind
Mhm.
of just chill for a while, watch what happens. I've seen mixed emotions on UFO Twitter and Facebook. Some people are saying that his story is right out of a science fiction novel book, and it was kind of
Mhm.
like he's given disinformation. That's his job. And then other people are saying, well, this is incredible stuff, and it matches up with like Bob Lazar's claims and other people's claims that
Mhm.
are in the need to know. So I just kind of stay in the middle and let it work its way out. And usually the truth always comes out. So in the end,
Mhm.
and we'll see what happens. I mean, I would love for this information to be true. I would love for him to be right and coming out and telling us this information. I mean, that's what I'm in this for. Passionate about the
Mhm.
subject. You know what I mean? I want disclosure
Right.
to happen. I want it all to be true. So,
Mhm.
that's just kind of my little bit on it.
Yeah. Uh, oh yeah, what was I gonna say? So I guess my journey through this, I had an experience when I was a kid too, and at
Okay.
first it just started out with me kind of being obsessed with aliens and feeling like something. I guess I saw something on the History Channel that scared me, and for a while, I was scared when I was a little kid of aliens, and at one point, I even woke up and thought I saw a little person with a giant head in my room,
Okay.
and but this was I was third, fourth grade. I was a little kid, so as I got older, I thought that was a kid seeing Santa Claus, right?
Right.
That wasn't, I'm not sure if that was real. But then when I was a teenager, it's about 14. I was staying in my dad's bedroom he had for me at his house, and it was in the basement. I remember it had this window up on the kind of up high on the ceiling. I'm just sitting in there just watching TV, and that a light just fills up that window, fills up the entire room. It's so bright. And I was like, this is, that was definitely strange. That kind of got it on my radar again for a little bit. But then after like I joined the Navy and went off, and it kind of just slipped my mind. I never really thought about it again. I kind of considered maybe it's a possibility, but it didn't really come back on my radar until about 2017 when the New York Times came back out. And then I was like, started looking more into it and reading more books and stuff. And that got me into it. But also I had an experience too. So I worked at NASA for 5 years,
Okay.
but
Cool.
I never got any impression that NASA had any information about alien conspiracies or anything. In fact, I got the impression most people thought that was silly or even to consider
Okay.
that at NASA. But one day I was having lunch, and I'm not going to name who this person was, but it was a senior person who was working with me on my team, and we're just sitting around, and he's like, kind of casually says, "Well, I know they have one." I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, he's like, I know. I talked to somebody in the CIA. I know that the U.S. government does have a UFO." And I was like, at that point in time, that wasn't even, I'd never even considered that or thought that. Like, if you had asked me that, I probably would have said you're crazy. And I did kind of
Right.
think it's crazy at first. And then I started reading more and more and more into it, and started thinking, wow, like this kind of is starting to look like it is true. Like, um, some of the books I read are like The Day After Roswell.
It's a good
That was
one.
a good one. That brings up the point you made. Why would Colonel Corso say all that stuff when he had a really like esteemed military career, and just all of a sudden just release this book about crazy nonsense? Like,
Right.
why it doesn't make sense why he would do that.
Well, see, I kind
And
of with Corso, I believe he was like retired, kind of on his deathbed, You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I kind of can see maybe why, you know what I mean? Maybe he knew he didn't have much longer left on this planet, so he
Right.
figured, let
Yeah.
me get it out there.
He wanted to get
But like the
off
other
his
guys,
chest.
they came from the intelligence field, you know,
Hmm.
and quit that job to come to ufology, which that's really
Yeah.
weird to me.
Yeah. Why would you leave a good career to? I
Right.
mean,
And then
ufology doesn't really pay that much. Like,
no, not at
you
all.
know. Yeah.
At all. And the thing was, Lou Ellis, when Lou came out, you know, he said that he came out publicly and stated that he quit his job to come and
Hmm.
help the American people learn about ufology. And then later on was, you know, he was saying he wasn't accepting no money from anybody in ufology, and that his family was hurting with money and they were living out of a trailer. And it's like, you had a distinguished career, right? You know, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. So that,
Hmm.
you know, it kind of puts that alert up, like, okay, are you a disinformation agent? Are you still working for them? Did you never really quit? You know,
Hmm.
so you gotta just look at all the different aspects. I mean, it usually paints a really clear picture eventually, but you know, it's
Yeah.
just something to think about,
Hmm.
something to point out.
Yeah. That I read about. So you know about Richard Doty, right?
Yeah.
He was kind
Mhm.
of like he was a disinformation agent, and then
Yeah, big time.
he came out and said like, no, actually that stuff's real, or he said some of it's real. I'm still confused on what Richard Doty is saying, but
Yeah.
he's
See, I can't. Bill Moore and the researchers that were around back in the day when Richard Doty was in the Air Force Special Office of Investigations. You know, he was working with Bill Moore, and he would feed Bill Moore, the researcher, you know,
mm,
good information, and then he would mix it in with disinformation. So, you know,
mm,
at first Bill would be reporting on this information he's getting from a source, he would say, and it would be
mhm,
all true. It would all line up. And then as people would start giving him the credibility and more people started paying attention, that's when Doty started putting disinformation in there, and then
mhm.
it would get people looking in different directions where they shouldn't be looking, or you know, where there's nothing there, instead of going to the real good
Right.
stuff. um,
Yeah.
you know, I was in that documentary with him, In Plain Sight: The Intelligence Community and UFOs, and he talks
uh,
about the stuff now like it's nothing. You know, talking about ET bodies and having all
yeah.
this stuff. He's seen it. You know, it's just hard. I mean, I can see maybe he's turned it around and maybe he really wants to help the field now. But you
Uh-huh.
just that's another one you gotta kind of take with a grain of salt in a way.
Yeah, right. When somebody admits that their job was to give disinformation,
Right.
you have to question
Absolutely.
what they're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, so okay, I guess we could talk about you want to talk about your UIP Medical Coalition and Project Battech and
Yeah, we
explain
can
what
do
those
that.
are for us? Yeah.
So Project Battech came first, and it stands for Battech stands for battery technology, and 404 is an error code that you normally get with different tech, whether it be your
Yeah.
phone or computer, whatever. And what we do, our job is to research and investigate electrical malfunctions that are associated with any UAP or UFO sighting or encounter.
Uh-huh.
So we just look at the EM effects,
Uh-huh.
and I think we're coming up on year three. October 1st will be year three that we've been doing this, and as of today, we have the largest and most accurate, up-to-date database on just EM cases that there is today. We're working in collaboration with CUFOS, the Center for UFO Studies,
Uh-huh.
Bufora, the British UFO Network, and we also have all of John Schuster's EM files, who started MUFON. So
Hmm.
we have all the information from everywhere. Plus, we take live cases. We build an email so people can report their cases to us. You know, and then we also assign. You know, once they report, I assign an investigator, one of our team researchers, to reach out just to, you know, make sure everything sounds okay. And then we built a Google Sheets database. So every case that each team researcher investigates gets logged into our database, basically.
Hmm.
um, and that's how we build up our statistics for, you know, what technology is being affected the most, the ranges in which these UFO craft are in when they're having these EM effects. We're also now looking at trace evidence from landing and crash sites,
Hmm.
substances, and we've come across, I think we got right here, organic carbide, We have different chemicals that NASA uses to protect against heat going in and out of the atmosphere. We found green polyvinyl fluoride, and the big one is sulfur. Sulfur is one of the most known ones. And all of these substances that we found have something to do with some kind of craft. I mean, everything. One thing is to protect against heat. One is used in batteries and different chemicals to help with propulsion systems. Different organic carbide is for making a craft completely steady and stable, really strong but lightweight. So all these things lead to some kind of craft landing, and it can also lead us to what kind of technology are these craft using, and is that helping to affect our technology? So we found a lot of really cool stuff. We've already published, I think, like 5 or 6 papers on the website. But yeah, anybody can report an EM case if you had it. We'll reach out. We've come a long way. We have some team scientists on board from the Canadian Space Agency and aerospace industries. So if we have anything that's scientific that needs to get done or in that line of career field, we can get those questions answered immediately. We have a video and photo analyst, one of the best that I know. And we just keep researching and researching. And we're also in collaboration with the UAP Medical Coalition, which is the other group that I co-founded. So with Project Battech, we look at all the EM health effects that are being that occur during these sightings. Like the Cash Landrum case was a really big one. That entire family got radiation poison from the sighting that day occurred of this huge object, and the whole reason it happened is because it malfunctioned their car and it wouldn't start. So they had to come to a complete stop. When they got out, they got radiation poisoning. So we take care of all the EM stuff for that project. The UAP Medical Coalition. We just started that. It's coming up on its first year, and we're basically trying to educate medical professionals on the exposures that experiencers and witnesses come away with during a sighting or encounter. We just actually held our first medical panel with doctors, therapists, PhDs, to come and talk about UFOs and how the exposures are and what people can walk away with, what we know they've walked away with. And it's basically to help experiencers no longer get misdiagnosed when they go to see a doctor or medical professional. I personally know people that have had experiences. They go to the doctors trying to get the help they need. And once they go there, they either get extra crazy medicated to the point where it really doesn't help anything. It's just covering it up, or they get sent to a mental institution. So that's what we want to prevent. So our goal is to really, hopefully, to get medical professionals from outside of ufology to educate themselves by going to our website and just reading the material so they can get educated on it and understand that when someone comes in, they know what to do the next time. So it's just interesting work. The UAP Med and Project Battech has got some really good people behind it. UAP Med is getting super big. We're happy about that, and it's all about being passionate. You know what I mean, about the subject and wanting to help move it forward. So it's really cool stuff.
I have some questions related to that. So the Medical Coalition, that's just like testing radiation effects, because I know I saw there's other ufologists, and there was a doctor in Ventura, California at one point that saw these people about these implants they had
Dr.
in their
Roger
bodies.
Yep.
Is that how it connected with the Medical Coalition, or is that
so
something
we look
else?
At all the different medical effects that people walk away with from experiences. So we built a forum. When you go on our website, it'll take you to the forum and you can sign up. And on the forum, there's maybe 150, we'll just say 100, maybe less, different topics that people or effects that people walk away with during these encounters. We're talking about brain injuries. We're talking about healings, eyesight, you're hearing yourself, gastrointestinal stuff, paralysis, vivid dreams, missing pregnancies. I mean, we go through all of it, and we put the information into that forum under each different topic, so that when a doctor looks at it, they can say, okay, well, what if my experiencer is dealing with this? They can go on the forum, click on that, and it'll give them all the information that we've added to that forum under that topic. So if you're looking at radiation, for example, it'll give you a whole bunch of different information and reading material that you can educate yourself on these people having radiation walking away from UFO sightings. It's a really big database, and we're still actually adding to it now, our forum. But go right on the website. It's uapmc.org, and you can check out the website. It'll get you to the forum. It'll allow you to there's surveys we're getting ready to put on there. It'll show you everybody we're in collaboration with, and all the team members that are working behind the scenes doing all the work. It's a really cool thing.
I was just trying to look it up. UAPMC. Oh, look it up here. Oh.
Yep, uapmc.org.
UAP.org. UAPMC.org. I see. Oh, it's a really nice looking website.
Yeah, well done. You got a really good guy to hook that up. He's a part of the team as well.
Cool. So if somebody had like an experience, would you like recommend them to a doctor that would see if they had implants? How would somebody know that? And
so
also
what
too,
we're
like
doing, we also have, so basically on the website there are like referrals basically to places that we can say an experiencer comes to us and says, hey, you know, I had some brain injury, or I feel like something's wrong with me, I need help. So we'll refer them to either an organization like MUFON, to their experiencer resource team, or Opus, the Understanding for Paranormal Understanding, or some other organization like that that can assist them and start the process to get them the right help. So they're not only, and in the meantime, they can look at the forum under what they're experiencing and understand it better. You know, it's also for experiencers, not just medical doctors. I mean, if I'm having some kind of gastrointestinal issue after a sighting, I go on the forum and look under gastrointestinal, and it tells me everything that I'm not only not alone, but other people are experiencing this, and this is what it is, and this is how it happens, and it explains it all to you. And then if you need help like that, we refer you to an organization or someone that you can talk to.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was wondering too. So even so, like, I was always interested in trying to get some kind of, like, you see how people get this like hypnotic regression therapy.
Yep.
I've always been interested to try that, to see if that would even amount to anything about these experiences I had when I was a kid.
Okay.
I'd be interested to know, to see if that comes about to anything.
Have you ever tried meditation at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, usually, you know, I've done meditation for a while, and usually, you know, sometimes in that relaxed meditative state, you can unlock memories, and the more you meditate, the more you learn how to do it properly. It can help, because basically what hypnosis is, it's a really deep state of meditation. It's the point of right before when your body goes to sleep. That's where hypnosis gets you. Now, you know, we always talk, like when people come and say we want hypnosis, when I'm working with the ERT for MUFON, you know, we always just let them know, you know, what are you looking for is the first thing. And you say you want information, and most people do. They want to know what happened to them. And we just try to let them know, you know, try to figure out things without having to do that, because sometimes hypnosis can mix memories up. And sometimes information doesn't always come out perfect. So we just try to recommend that. But there's some cases where it needs to be done. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And MUFON has a referral list that we refer experiencers to get the hypnosis done. Betty and Barney Hill was a great example of the hypnosis session. I don't know if you've seen the tapes.
Yeah, I've heard that tape before. Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
That's a scary tape. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd hate to have some kind of experience like that where I'm screaming and remembering being abducted or something. I don't.
It helped them a lot, though, in the case. You know, that's what I mean. Some people see, the thing is, some experiencers come in and they say, you know, I've had all these different experiences, and I want to know about this, and I want to know about that, and I want to know about this. and then they'll go and they'll read up on a bunch of other experience or information, and then they'll go and have hypnosis. And the hypnosis sometimes will mix in with other people's experiences because you're looking for all these different answers and not just one thing. And you've
Hmm.
read all these other people's experiences. So now you're mixing your experience with other people through the hypnosis. And it does
Yeah.
happen. So we just
Yeah.
try to make sure you're focusing on one thing.
Mhm.
It's the last resort, and then go get hypnosis done. And most of the
Yeah.
time, it does work.
Okay. Um, I have another question about this Project Battech. What kind of testing do you do for, say, you have some kind of electronic device that somebody said was interfered with? How do you go about doing testing on that?
So, I mean, we've looked at stuff before, and this is throughout history. I mean, things that have been affected by technology or from UFOs that have been affected, like cell phones, for example. So most of the time, if your cell phone, goes completely dead, you have to take the battery out and put it back in, and the phone works perfectly fine. There's no real evidence of like trace evidence from electronics being messed with.
Yeah.
You know, so what our testing is where I would want to get in touch with the local colleges here in Philadelphia where I'm at, and ask them to use their equipment to measure different frequency levels.
Uh-huh.
And when we measure these frequency levels, whether it be high, low, and then we can mark down what the levels are, we'll be able to use those frequencies at different technology and see what level of frequency makes that tech malfunction. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
we'll use whatever equipment they have and point it at a cell phone, and we'll go to a low frequency all the way up to a high, and whenever it
Uh-huh.
starts being effective, we can then get that data and have that for future reference. So
Uh-huh.
that's some of the stuff we are trying to do. I've been looking and playing a little bit with my EMF meters and stuff like that to see, regular levels of frequencies, overabundance of frequency. So we can kind of get a
Uh-huh.
little bit of an idea, but it would be great to have these guys that work at the college that are like really good at this, to
Yeah,
get us that
yeah.
information.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because I didn't take this class, but in my degree field, they had this class called computer forensics,
Oh,
and
wow.
that kind of sounds like what you would need is like that's to like see if any of the data is corrupted or if it's recoverable or uh, that kind of thing. That's what I think of when you say this like Project Battech thing, but I, I don't even understand how the computer forensics all that works. I didn't even take that class, but that's
Yeah,
just
because
kind of
you
what
get
I'm
to learn a bunch
thinking.
of different stuff. MUFON, see what's cool about
Yeah,
MUFON has a bunch of, once you become a field investigator, MUFON has its own online university. So you go
yeah,
on
yeah. I've
there
seen
and you
that.
take a bunch of
Hmm.
certifications, and
Yeah.
one of them is computer technology, which is really cool.
Uh huh.
And then I also joined the Planetary Society, and they have certification classes as well. And then if you go
Uh
on Google, Google offers free certification classes from Google themselves. So you can use these throughout life if you need to as a background. But
yeah.
I've went and tried to learn everything, and I'm still in the middle of taking certifications still. But I think I got like
Yeah.
14 of them now. You know what I mean? Because this is such a vast field that you want to
Hmm.
be educated at least a little bit in each of it, so you know what you're doing when it comes to you. So
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. So I keep seeing. I saw a couple times. I've been watching like the Arrow presentations, that they've been
yeah.
giving,
Hmm.
and they have mentioned something. I took a picture of it, like some kind of radio frequency that they see associated with the UFOs. Is that something you've heard of, or is like I've kind of thought about maybe getting my own radio set and trying to find this frequency and see if it's turning up. Is that
Yeah.
something you've
See,
heard of or try?
SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, they use radio
Uh,
signals to
right.
try to
Yeah.
find, different radio signals coming in. So we can measure them, and we can, try to work with those frequencies to connect like that. But that's,
Uh-huh.
I've heard them using it. Arrow, I've heard them mention it, but I haven't seen, they haven't released the data of how they're doing
No,
it.
they don't release the
So,
details of it. No,
right,
I just mentioned
exactly.
it.
It'd be nice to see
Yeah.
all that stuff too, and especially because now they're working with NASA. So it would be even better. I can imagine what they're doing. Then you got the Galileo project going as well with Dr. Avi Loeb. So
Yeah.
he's looking out for intelligent life too. And I
Yeah.
would love to pick their brain for a few minutes about this stuff.
Yeah, me too. I've heard Avi Loeb speak for a little bit, and I started reading some of his stuff, but I haven't. What he says about that Moa is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah,
Especially the curve that the object made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like I don't know. It's weird. People will say that it was the gravitational field of the Earth that made it turn, but I mean, an object that large, it's kind of hard to explain.
No,
I can understand if it was maybe a little meteor that was coming by and it got caught by that gravitational pull, but this was a large object. If that object hit Earth, half the Earth would have been destroyed. You know what I mean? So,
right. Yeah.
very strange, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's getting there, but I feel like still the mainstream like academic community still thinks this is a waste of time to explore the UFOs, I think, and that stigma is there, still pretty strong. I was watching something last night about how the CIA essentially kind of created this stigma, and like how that showed all these news reports, and like the news reports would say, I just got to laugh at this.
Right.
Somebody says they saw a UFO. Like,
Yep.
you kept seeing that over and over again. They're like, just start laughing at the person, and people won't.
They say that, the
look
FBI
into
and the
it.
CIA have people in the media agencies that are reporting their news, and they actually have to, send it by them if they're able to release it and do that. So they control every bit of aspect of what we get our information from. So they can pick and do anything like that. And of course, you always see the newscaster, like you said, and they're always giggling about it when they report it. You know what I mean? And when they're giggling like that, how can you take anything serious?
Yeah. So, it makes the average person think like, if I look into this, then people are going to be laughing at me. I don't.
Right. And how many pilots lost their wings and don't fly anymore? How many police officers lost their jobs? How many scientists have been ridiculed and like pushed to the bottom of the list? You know what I mean? Like it was pretty bad at one point. I think it's getting better. It is. I mean, it is getting better. They're starting to ask people to report and do that, but there's always going to be that stigma there. And then I think a lot of that comes from the lack of education on the subject itself. Somebody who knows nothing about the UFO phenomenon, most people don't even know the government's investigating it. Then they find that out and they're like, oh, okay, maybe there is something to it. But because they don't educate themselves, that stigma continues to go on and they laugh at people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully, I think that stigma is going away, and then we'll have experts from every corner of every field looking into this. And I think that's what we need. We need scientists, every type of scientist, to look into this, and once we do, I think we'll have more answers. It kind of, I get the impression that like whoever is investigating the UFOs, whoever does have the access to the UFOs, are just the people they can trust. It's not the whole, academic community doesn't have access to this, and if they did, it would change the whole world.
Yeah, I don't even think the president has access, because they only do a 4 or 8 year term and then they're out. You know what I mean? So I think it stays to really, black budget type stuff in the CIA, in that corner office that nobody's allowed to go in, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're the only ones dealing with it,
Yeah.
So they don't want people knowing about this stuff, for sure. They say that one of the big reasons is the technology aspect, you know what I mean? And the United States wants to stay ahead technology wise. And if they release all the information, then their adversaries might be getting that information and using it against us. So I kind of understand most of it. But they should say, hey, they're here. At least say we are being visited. Things are coming to our planet. Things have crashed here. You know what I mean? They don't have to get into the intelligence stuff of it. It's just give us the time of day.
if they have some kind of alternate energy source besides fossil fuels, that
Right.
then
And look
that's
at that
pretty.
effect. That affects oil. That
Yeah,
affects electricity. I mean, all the rich people will lose their money. They don't want that,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's kind of what Dr. Greer says. I saw his last documentary. It's
Okay.
kind of shocking.
He
I
just had
forgot
a
what.
presentation last week on Monday. He held a big conference in
Yeah, yeah,
DC. And
uh,
his Monday thing with all his whistleblowers was on YouTube for free.
yeah. I saw
That was
some of it.
pretty
I
interesting.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't see all of it.
Okay.
I know there was one part. There was this whistleblower in that Disclosure 2.0 that said he was a Marine and he was doing like a humanitarian mission to help people get out of the Philippines or something. There's a hurricane, and he said his squad was just like walking up this hill, and they turn and they see a UFO just floating there, and
Right.
they walk over there, and there's these like clearly American guys speaking English with all this black ops gear,
Yep.
you know, high speed gear, and they're loading something onto the UFO that he said looks like little tanks with like oxygen tanks on them. What somebody said could be like people or children they're loading onto the UFO,
Right.
and he said they saw him. The guys like told him like, we need to see your IDs. You better, you know, you have to turn around, get the f out of here. You know,
Right.
don't look back, or we're gonna shoot you. And they got out of there, but that kind of stuff. And then like Grush saying that there's some kind of alliance with the government and all this stuff. And like, to me, I think I just hit a point in belief where I start to look at our government and everything, you know, they've done and I've been doing. Like I spent pretty much my entire adult life working for the government. Like I worked for the Navy for 5 years. I worked for NASA for 5 years. And like part of me just thinks like, okay, is that a lie? Is what NASA is doing a lie? Like NASA is working with these rockets over here looking at rocks and dust, and you know, is the somebody in the DoD actually looking at the aliens? And like
Right. Yeah.
it
I don't
seems.
know if NASA has the inside. I don't know if they do or not. I don't
I
believe
doubt
so.
it.
You
I
know,
If
because they
anybody
were
does.
so mad. They were so mad that they weren't being included when, you know, the investigation started at the Pentagon. They're like,
uh,
NASA should be included in this, you know.
yeah.
Um, Finally, they are now, which is great. But yeah, I
Hmm.
believe they were in the dark the whole time.
I think so too. I think NASA is just kind of like a pawn in this. Like they're kind
Right.
of there to say, hey, yeah, look, we're looking at space. Like, look, but
Right.
NASA's broke. One of the things I learned about being at NASA is they don't have nearly as much money as the DoD, and they're just kind of struggling to get these like projects out the door that
Right.
most of the time don't even get funded.
Well, see, that's
And
the thing with that too is they're not going to give NASA anything or anything like that because of FOIA requests. So they use
yeah,
SpaceX and they use Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and all these, you know, private industries because if people want to ask questions, they can ask NASA all they want. They can file a FOIA and ask NASA, but because they're not
yeah,
into it, they don't know. And you can't FOIA request SpaceX and Jeff Bezos and all them people. So they give
hmm,
them guys them, you know, dark little projects to shoot up or whatever and do, and nobody
hmm,
knows and nobody can ask. So
yeah,
yeah, it's crazy stuff, man.
yeah. It is crazy stuff, and it made me kind of. It makes me kind of just like second guess how I look at everything. Like the news, I can't even watch the news. Like now, I think is the news. Is this like some kind of intel thing that you're telling me? Is this even true? You know, and I have
Yep.
some friends. Like I'm from Kansas in the Midwest, and friends that I served in the military with. I'm sure you've probably heard somebody that's like all into this QAnon stuff. That like
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
pro-
I've seen a lot of that.
probably probably thinks a lot of crazy stuff about our government.
Yep.
And to after I of hearing all this and like kind of going through this second guessing of like what the government's doing, it makes me think like if I'm talking to somebody who's into this QAnon stuff, like I have a friend that I was in the Navy with, I can't really say that there's no truth to it. Like I don't know, but I mean, I know it gets ridiculous. Like QAnon says, "Oh no, Donald Trump is still the president. He's gonna, show up in DC and all these Midwestern people will show up
Yep,
and wait for him to to show up or something." It gets pretty ridiculous. But the idea that the government is involved in some huge conspiracy and is lying to us on some large scale, I feel like is probably a good chance that's probably is true.
absolutely,
So so
absolutely.
I think the QAnon people, I'm not too far from DC, and when I woke up the next day and heard about the riots and stuff, I was pretty shocked. But I don't know about the whole Trump election thing, but I think they did have a right to be pissed and have a right to want to go, knock down the doors of our government and say, "What are you
Absolutely.
doing?" But I don't think that was the right way. I don't think that was going to accomplish anything the way they did it. But
No, it didn't accomplish anything. It just made our nation, 10 times worse than what it
yeah,
was.
more unstable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that unstableness reached everywhere. I mean, how many people are sitting in jail now because of all that? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like you guys could have peacefully protested, everything would have been fine. It would
Uh-huh.
have been done properly. Donald Trump wouldn't be getting in a lot of the trouble that he did. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like something suspicious was going on. I have a feeling that like maybe there was some intel services that were trying to incite things like on the right and the left. Like I heard on Reddit and stuff during the riots of 2020 that people were showing up with somebody would show up with a pallet of bricks and leave it like right there. I've seen pictures like that. I don't know if how true that is, but I've also heard stories about like in the riots that somebody just let all the rioters into the Capitol building and just like move the barricades and said,
Yeah, and
"Come
there
on
was
in."
Capitol Police that were involved with it that let them right in.
Right. So I don't know. It makes me feel like something's going on more to this. Like somebody's trying to incite us.
Well,
But
I 100% believe that the government, whoever's controlling this all this stuff we're talking about, they're really out to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't become president again. And I believe
hmm
they're doing everything possible to make sure that he doesn't. They're
hmm
pressing. I mean, look, he's getting indicted right now because of all the top secret documents that he had in Mar-a-Lago. They didn't get back, right? Um,
hmm
uh, Biden and Mike Pence did the same thing. They were just able to quickly hurry up and give them back before they came and raided their houses. But they
Yeah.
only did that because they saw what happened to Trump. So why is
hmm
it just that Trump is the only one in court and Mike Pence, his vice president, and the president now isn't getting indicted? And they're saying the only difference is because they gave it back before they came to the home. Well, it's like
Yeah.
they only did that because they saw what you guys did to Trump. You know what I mean? They're just as guilty. They had top secret documents at their home too. So it just kind of shows you it's that one way, and whatever they want, they're going to try to make happen.
Yeah. I kind of feel like probably Trump didn't want to play ball with the intelligence community, so they
Yeah.
started really messing with him. I
Yep.
remember talking to one of my friends about this, like how when he was the president, it became regular occurrence for the news to report on what he's tweeting about. Like every day, it's like
Yeah.
what he's tweeting about and pointing him. Like I feel like he played right into their hands by getting all angry and going on Twitter and writing these angry Twitter posts.
Yep.
And then that gave ammo to the news to put it up there and say, "Look at this guy. He's a crazy
That's right.
loon.
Yep.
Like this
And
guy's
see,
a
that
mess."
started because he got into office and he was unlike any president that we ever had before. He made his own path and did things that he wanted to do the way he wanted them done. He wasn't following in the footsteps of other people. And
Uh,
they knew that he had a short temper. So and like you said, they used it against him. They made him
yeah,
snappy and kind of hurt himself in a lot of situations. But they didn't I believe from day one, they didn't want him in office, and he won by a
yeah,
landslide. I don't think they expected that either.
yeah.
But yeah, it's whatever they want. It can happen. So
hmm Yeah, and it makes me think too. So if there's some authority over our Congress, over our president, what hopes do we have of ever getting any disclosure if this authority is so powerful that we
Right.
can't even escape from it? We can't even really know much about it. We just know the president, we can speak to our congressmen or if we have issues, but we can't speak to these people. We can't even know who they are. Like,
Yeah. See, like I've reached out to my state reps and stuff like that, and luckily the one that is here in Pennsylvania deals with the intelligence community, and he actually, I was shocked. He responded to my emails. He actually, and then he went and sent me a letter as well, and he was educated on the UAP topic and what was going on in
uh,
the Capitol Hill. All of it. He knew about Arrow and the investigations into the Pentagon, looking into UFOs. I think that's where it kind of starts at. You know what I mean? You
uh,
kind of got to work with them because they're the ones that are going to help you. You can't reach out
yeah,
to the president like that. You're never going to get
no,
a response.
uh,
So I mean, I try to tell people all the time. They're like, "Oh, well, they're not going to answer our state reps." I'm like, "Well, you got to at least try." You know what I mean? You got to try somewhere. You
yeah,
know. So I mean, I got a little bit of feedback. I know he's doing his job because he obviously knew what I was talking about because I didn't describe it in detail. But when he wrote
uh,
back to me both times, it was in detail about what was going on at that time, you know?
yeah.
So
You remember
pretty cool.
when this Chinese balloon thing was going on, and then at some point they had a briefing, and one of the congressmen, I don't know if you saw this, but it sounded like they got some kind of information, and they said, they were like, "Do you have a comment?" And he was like, "Lock your doors tonight," and then he just left. Did you
Oh,
see
no, I didn't
that?
see that. No.
That was like right after the Chinese balloon stuff went on, and
Hmm.
people were getting all crazy about UFOs. One of the Southern congressmen, he walks out of this briefing, and they said, "Well, what did you learn?" or something. I'll have to find that exact thing, but it was chilling. It was like scary. He just said, "Lock your doors tonight," and then
Hmm.
leaves. And it was just like, "Lock your
That's weird.
doors from what? From what?" And and yeah, it just makes me feel like they probably are getting taking this more seriously. They probably have gotten some information, see some things, and hopefully this isn't just like a right wing issue or a left wing issue. I hope both are taking this seriously, but I
Absolutely. I
hope,
mean, Republicans have been really good on it. You know what I mean? And then the
uh,
Democrats are slowly starting to get involved as well. And I was
yeah,
shocked when we had, I think, what was it, the first hearings last year? I was shocked that the representatives in the stands when it was the two DOD guys that were being interviewed. I
uh,
was shocked at how some of these representatives and congressmen and women were educated on the subject, more
uh,
educated than the DOD members. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it
yeah,
shows that the stuff is starting to stick with certain people that are curious.
uh,
And I think today is one of the best times to be able to come out and talk about things that we normally couldn't. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, today you
uh,
can talk about anything. So
uh,
I do think disclosure is a process. I don't think it's any one particular thing. And I believe that process started when Senator Gillibrand and Marco Rubio put the bill into place when Trump was in office and he signed off on it. That started
uh,
disclosure. You know what I mean? For me, I already know disclosure. I know that this phenomenon is real. There's too
yeah,
many people that I've worked with. There's too much information that I've learned. I've talked to some really people that would know. You know what I mean? It's real in my opinion.
yeah,
I've had experiences. I've had sightings. You know what I mean? And it's not our government. So I don't need the president to come out and say, "Hey, aliens are real. They're going to land here tomorrow." I don't need them to do that. I kind of
yeah,
already know it. But it would be nice
hmm
for them to give confirmation about what's
hmm
going on. We deserve that as taxpayers, as people
hmm
living on this planet. That's the thing you got to remember too. I tell everybody, they're working for us. We pay their salary. They're
yeah,
supposed to represent the people. So
right,
use them, bug them. You know what I mean? Write their office. If they don't write you back, call their office. If they say they'll give you a call back, show up at their office. You know what I mean? Do
yeah,
it. So you know.
I thought about so I saw this documentary the other night. It was about the Kennedy assassination. It was
Okay.
so Oliver Stone made a movie about it, and then he made another movie about it later on. when they had even more evidence, and it just looked like all signs point to it was a conspiracy. It
Oh, yeah.
was
It was a
like
setup for sure.
it wasn't even like they didn't even try very hard to hide it. It was like,
He was like the first Donald Trump, but it was at the time when things
yeah,
couldn't be like that. So
right,
they wanted
yeah.
to make sure they took
He
it out.
he didn't
And
play ball with
3
the
people.
intelligence.
He was
Yeah,
shot from 3 different directions. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, he had an exit wound from the front and the back. Like,
Yep.
and they tried to say that wasn't, it's one person.
No,
It
it
was
was
just
3.
so obvious. Obviously, it kind of seemed like they just said, "Yep, that's what happened. You better believe us, or it
Right.
could happen to you." Like,
Yep. He started talking about stuff. He started talking
yeah,
about UFOs. He said he was going to start making stuff public. And that
mhm,
3-letter agency, black market type stuff, they were like, no, this ain't happening. We're going to take them out. You know what I
right,
mean? If it would have been
yeah,
Trump at that time, Trump would have been taken out. You know what I mean? But today's different. So,
yeah. I assume they probably just didn't tell Trump enough to even get there. Like, they probably
like,
just wouldn't.
I think they do get briefed somewhat. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
somewhat. Yeah,
they might be told, like, yes, this stuff is real. This is some stuff we've encountered. But they're
yeah.
not giving them answers to, like, yeah, we have their technology. We've met
No,
aliens. They're not going to
no,
tell them
yeah,
that kind of
yeah. They
stuff.
probably just give him the high level
Right. The
briefing
bare
because
minimum.
they probably knew, like, Mr. Tweetfingers is going to go share this right away. Like,
That's
we're not
right.
going to we're not going to
That's
tell
right.
him this. If we don't want to have another Kennedy on our hands where we have to make this guy dead and have an explanation for it
It's a lot
somehow.
harder today. So
Yeah, a lot. It'd be a lot harder today. It'd be pretty.
that's right.
People wouldn't just like I saw how they like dropped a bullet. Somebody dropped a bullet on the stretcher. Like, hey, we found this bullet. This must have been the bullet that hit him. It was totally undamaged. It hasn't. It's a brand new bullet. And they said this bullet went through the entire car and several people,
No,
but it's not. Yeah, stuff
crazy.
like that. Like, I'm starting to have a real evaluation of like our government and what other unethical things are they doing that.
A lot.
Probably a lot. Yeah, probably everything they can
All
get
the
away
stuff
with.
they did to people that were involved in the UFO field back in the day. You know how
Yeah.
many people were locked up and put in insane asylums? How many people were ridiculed to the point where they lost their family, they got divorces.
Mhm.
They lost their house, they lost their job, their careers, everything because of this subject. You know, and
Yeah.
I talk about this big in my book big time because from 2004 to up. Well, even with the documents and stuff that they put out today, they only go back to the 2000s, early 2000s. They don't go back
Mhm.
before that or anytime, to Roswell or nothing. They don't talk about nothing before the 2000s whatsoever. So they're basically trying to make this like it's a newer phenomenon, like it only started happening in the
Yeah.
2000s, and that's
Mhm.
completely wrong. You know what I mean? And they don't want to answer for all the stuff they've done to people and ridiculed and the people they threatened, the
Mhm.
people that lost their jobs because of that. They would have so much repercussion. So they
Yeah.
have to sit there and say, "Oh, well, we didn't investigate anything before the 2000s. We've only focused here, and we're focusing from here forward." It's like, well,
Mhm.
what about all these people that that were back in the day telling you about this, and you weren't listening then? They don't
Mhm.
want to answer for that stuff. They know exactly what they're doing. They got it planned out. This whole thing, it was all about money. I know that's where it started. The
Mhm.
DoD wants money, so they have funding to do projects. So they had to kind of go along with Senator Gillibrand and say, okay, yeah, we want to look into it too, but we need $12 million to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, where did that
Mhm.
12 million go already? you
Yeah.
know. So they're smart about it. They know exactly what they're doing. And they're
Mhm.
making a lot of the public that doesn't know about the UFO field all go think it only started in the 2000s. They don't even know
Mhm.
about Roswell. So it just shows you that it's working to a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I saw. I was looking on Reddit the other day, and somebody brought up Roswell, and somebody's like, "Psh, that's the most debunked thing in history. Everybody knows that's not like who debunked it. No, no, they
Nobody
didn't.
debunked
The
it.
Air Force made an attempt to debunk it. In like the 90s, they released another report saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, that was a Project Mogul balloon." And then they
Right.
released another report, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, if somebody saw bodies there, those were crash test dummies. Those weren't bodies.
No.
And I read. Have you heard of John Greenwald, the
Yeah.
Black Vault
The
guy?
Black Hole. Yeah.
I read his book, and he said so. All the documents connected to Roswell just kind of disappeared, and
Okay.
the crash test dummy explanation doesn't even make sense because they're
No.
trying to attribute something that he said crash test dummies weren't even invented back then. They didn't have them or use them, period, for like 5 years after that. So there's like so many holes in their explanation. And like, I don't even know why they felt like they needed to throw in that crash test dummy there. Maybe they knew somebody caught them, saw something. They're like, oh yeah, no, that was a crash test
Right.
dummy. And
what they originally printed in that paper, that was correct.
mm-hmm.
I believe that 110%. And then once the higher ups found out about it, they said retract that immediately. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Yeah,
That's
with the
why they did it.
first report. Yeah.
Right. And then the original guy, that the head, Jesse Marcel, the head of the intelligence for the 509th Bomb Crew, he went out there on that ranch. And don't think that he don't know the difference between balloon debris and some kind of spacecraft that crashed. That man was very smart. He was educated. He worked on aircraft all the time. There's no way you're telling me that man thought that a little plastic balloon thing was a crash saucer. There's no way.
Yeah.
Then they made him be ridiculed in a sense by saying that he was basically stupid and got it wrong, and then made him take a picture with this stuff that was just some plastic stuff from a balloon. And it's like, man, ruining his reputation. Then he worked his whole life to get to where he got because of that. There was no mistakes there. Everything was true originally.
He came out later, Jesse Marcel, and said that it was a crash spacecraft, and he even drew pictures of the bodies and showed them to people. There's a National Geographic. It's on Disney Channel actually. It's like one lost mystery show or something, and they have like a 3-part episode over Roswell, and they interview the people at Roswell. They interview Jesse Marcel. Okay. All of them say like, no, it was the whole town knew what it was. Like
absolutely.
Somebody came in. I think the rancher Mac Brazel. He like found it allegedly and just took it to the local bar and it's like, hey guys, look at this stuff. And
a lot of the people and the kids in the town got to play with it. When they were little.
People saw it, and a lot of people were aware of it, and then
and then you got researchers. You got Kevin Randall and Tom Carey and Don Schmidt, which were the 3 original investigators to Roswell. That's what they've committed their life to. So they've been the Roswell bunch, and Don Schmidt owns the UFO Museum in Roswell, New Mexico, and they work there all the time. And they've interviewed hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of witnesses in Roswell and people that were associated with Roswell themselves. I've had Don on the podcast twice and Tom on once. And everything they told me about these kids playing with the metal that was given out at the bar. They've interviewed all those people, video interviews, talking with them, the families that the kids brought it home to and showed their mom and dads and how it all happened. I mean, it's incredible. And unfortunately, there's not many firsthand witnesses left. They're kind of getting that age where they're passing and dying. But luckily Tom, Don, and Kevin got this all on paper and research. So the clues add up to everything. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's good stuff. I mean, and same thing kind of like with Bob Lazar. That's another big story, people, I've had Jim Goodall on my show. He was a big aerospace historian. He went to Roswell, Area 51 one time, and he believes Bob 100%. He's really good friends with Bob Lazar. And the things that Bob talked about back in the 90s, you know what I mean? The element 115, the memory metal, the sports, like the sports craft UFO that he worked on. Look, it wasn't real back then. Now today we have element 115, just like you talked about. We believe that we found, blueprints and we talk about these the craft that looked like the sports model. The memory metal we know, and we think that is starting to be produced now. I've seen it. It was either DARPA or some private industry is working with a metal just like the memory metal now. So, I mean, it's all come true. None of his story really, it's never deviated. It's always been the same story. And the only reason he even came out was because his life was being threatened. He didn't want to get killed.
Yeah.
Bob was a very smart guy. He still lives today. He has his own little, he's still a scientist to this day,
Yeah.
So I believe the story of Bob. I mean, I think what he, them erasing the military and the three-letter agencies, erasing all of his work history, all the places he went to school, and then to come and find out George Knapp goes to one of the places he worked at, and they forgot to take Bob Lazar's name out of the phone book. So
Yeah.
George Knapp
I've heard
found his
that.
name, and his phone number, and his desk number of where he worked at. You know what I mean? So there's proof of what he said was absolutely true. I mean, if anybody out there that can debunk that, I would love to hear you. If you're a serious inquiry about it, I would love to hear that story. How you think it's a debunk. Same thing with Roswell. So, there's some really good cases in ufology, man. There's some really tight stuff, like the Shag Harbor one I was just reading in the book. It's the only documented government UFO crash in American history and in world history. So it's a really good case. I was completely hooked on that book. I didn't think it was going to be that good. So just when you see a book and it says, the world's only documented UFO case, it's like, this really, come on now. But when you read it, all the documents are included in the book. This thing really happened. You got military and police officers that were there that night, along with hundreds of witnesses. So there's some really good stuff out there that people really can't debunk. And if these people that are skeptics out there would go and educate themselves on these encounters like this, it might change their lives.
Yeah. Now I think with so many whistleblowers, I saw so there's this like liberal news media channel online called the Young Turks. They made a story about the UFOs, and they said at first one of the hosts like kind of laughed it off, like ha ha ha, ha UFOs, and the other one's like, no, like in all seriousness, it would be more unlikely that all the whistleblowers are lying at this point. It makes more sense to take this seriously than it does to. I was glad they said that. They cleared that up. Like, hey, no, this is not a laughable, something to just laugh off.
Yep. So, I did see. I think it was 2 weeks ago. There was 2 news channels before the briefing and after the briefings or whatever that did actually, with straight faces and all seriousness, report it. And that was big. That was national news, and I was actually shocked. That's the first time I've ever seen them not laugh about the subject and talk about it in a serious manner. And it was only because they were reporting that the DOD, Arrow, and the Pentagon is investigating this, and so they didn't laugh about it. And I was actually like, "That's how it should be."
That's progress,
right? And that is exactly progress. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say disclosure is a process. You know what I mean? We're getting disclosure. It's just it takes a couple different things to happen.
Yeah, I think the truth is so shocking. The reality of it, it's a difficult thing to accept, and it took me a long time to accept too. And I think the average person isn't ready to experience that ontological shock of knowing that there is a big conspiracy to hide this. And I for the longest time, and I've said this to my friend that I talk to on this channel sometimes too, that I served in the Navy with, that after experiencing being in the military, my impression and my friend's impression was like, these people are so incompetent. How could they hide this such a important secret? Like, I know my battalion, they could barely file my paperwork without getting it lost. Like, how could like?
Yeah, when people say that, though, I kind of point them back to the atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project. 130,000 people worked on that bomb and worked there every day. Went to work and worked on that bomb, and nobody talked about it. So I think if they want to keep a secret, they could definitely do it.
Yeah, it kind of
They
makes
threaten you. Here's an NDA. Sign that NDA. You can't talk about it. If you do, you're going to jail the rest of your life.
yeah, kind of makes me feel like in the CB battalion, you get quite a lot of just people that are just kind of dummies and don't really seem like they can handle much. But I feel like the real professionals, they're not here. They're over in they got all the real professionals and the black ops stuff. Right. Like, not, they don't have. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. When you get the peanut butter shot in your ass when you're getting there, and you watch the guys collapse to the ground crying, you know what I mean? The ones that are going to make it. Who's
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I had to have that peanut butter shot twice on my boot camp.
Ooh.
Oh boy, it hurt. I remember getting out of bed.
It hurt like a pitch, but
put my leg on the ground, like, ooh, I was on the top bunk, and I felt that one.
And that hurt for a good 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going through basic training, having that, oh.
I think everybody in my boot camp ended up getting sick too. Like, we all got like a flu or something, and that's why we had to get
make you sick.
Yeah.
And plus, like the whole week before, we went across the tracks to go to basic. They made us stand outside. And, we would get our shots, and they make us stand out in the rain and the cold, and just stand out there all week long until we got up, to make us get sick purposely, I think. So then we would build an immune system up to it, so we didn't get the rest of the basics.
Ooh, I got a funny story about that. So I went to Navy dive school, but I didn't finish. I got injured. But one of the things we did one time is they marched us down to the bay. The bay was disgusting. It has where all the boats are, you can see oil and stuff. And I swear to God, I'm not even joking. We get in the bay, and I swear I saw what I thought was a turd floating in the water.
Ugh.
And so what they did is they told us to go fill up your masks with that water that was right there, that disgusting, festering water, put it on your face, and then they just proceeded to beat the piss out of us, like push-ups, flutter kicks, just forever. And they said, this is immune system training. This is
oh my God.
it's like, well, I'm pretty sure I probably just got shit water in my face.
Yeah. After basic, you definitely don't get grossed out as easy anymore about stuff.
Yeah. I remember doing this and filling up my mask and looking over and
that's gross, bro.
Okay, I'm doing this, but fun times. But
I guess they're
behind me now. I didn't. Well, I think I'm about to wrap it up. It's been over an hour. I had fun. I enjoyed this. I would like to.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me, Luke. I appreciate it.
If I can help out with your projects, Project Battech sounds interesting to me. I feel like I could contribute somehow to that. I'm probably look over your website and get back in touch with you and see.
Yeah, check it out. And I've been recruiting for the past week and a half. I just had 2 new people join because some of the original people have stepped down. So I had to go on a recruitment and get some new researchers. So right now, if you want to do it, I'm doing that process. I only want maybe one more person like yourself. So if you want to do it, I said, definitely do it soon before somebody else does it.
I would like to.
The first step, just send me an email to that project email with your background, your work background, and worth that. Anything that your background is, what state you're in, and that's it. And then I'll email you from that point on, and
okay,
give you the
I'll
directions.
Send that off a little bit later today.
It's battech404researchmembers@gmail.com. It's a little long. You'll find it on the website.
Oh yeah, I'll look it up. I got my my MUFON field investigator certification. I took that test.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, and I actually got the certificate, but I never actually went out and investigated any cases because I'm at home watching my kids most of the time, so it's kind of hard for me to just leave whenever.
Have you talked to your state director and everything yet?
A little bit, yeah. I haven't.
Where you at?
Gotten there. I'm in Maryland, like right outside of DC.
Who's your state director?
I had him on Facebook. Let me see if I can find him again. forgot. I think it was like Phil or something. Let me. Daniel Spill.
Daniel Spill.
I've reached out to him a little bit on Facebook, but I've never really pulled the trigger and like said, "Can I go investigate any cases?" Or
so you've been in contact with the director of investigations at all?
No,
because usually when I went through, I got my certification. I wasn't allowed to do any cases until we went and did a 3 1-hour courses with the director of investigation, and then during that time we had to take 4 certifications. Then after that, I got my first case, and they kind of helped me if I needed the help. And then after that, once it was good, they started assigning me cases. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
So they haven't assigned you a case then yet?
No, I haven't gotten that far. I haven't really spoken with that.
Have they told you your next step at all?
Not really. I think I spoke with Daniel, and he said, "Let me know when you finish that course," and I said I did, and he never really got back to me. I don't know.
I would send him another one.
Yeah, maybe I should talk to him again.
Send him another one, and then there's also there should be section directors too.
I just didn't want to commit to saying I can do this because sometimes my wife's working or something. I have to be at home, so I can't.
Right. Well, see, look, when you get a case, when you're just doing regular field investigations, you have a 3-month period to get a case done. So it doesn't have to be done within a day or two. I mean, I work on cases. The fastest I'll close a case is a month because I try to look at every little aspect of the case. So it's not something where they assign you something and you got to hurry up and get it done. You have time. So it's not like it's not hectic. They won't overwhelm you with cases, especially because you're new.
Yeah.
So they'll give you one at a time until you get the hang of it. If you ever need any help, I'm here.
Okay.
Ask me, let me know if you need anything. I'll walk you through it if you need help, if they're not getting back to you in time.
Yeah.
So, but that's weird. He should have gotten back to you. He should have told you the next steps by now. But I would email him. And if you have to, go on the website, look at your chapter, and find your assistant state director. Reach out to them. They might get back to you a lot quicker. It depends on who it is.
Right. So. Okay.
Sure.
Well, I'll probably send you that email to your Battech research probably a little bit later, and I'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good. I check email daily, so I work through email all day long.
So, all right. Well, thank you for sitting with me, Jesse. I really appreciate this. I just like reaching out, making connections with other people in the UFO community, and
absolutely,
that's how we build our network, collaboration, and learn things. And I feel like with this field, it's kind of like you have to go digging around to really find the answers. It's not like going to college for something and you can just pick up the textbook. Like sometimes you don't even know what textbook to look at or what's good information, what's bad information, and what rabbit hole should you continue to go down, what or a waste of time. I feel like that's why you need other people in the UFO community who've done that research and done that work. And
that's the other thing too. When you start doing your first case, I'll send you all the links to different websites that will help you with your case. There's a free video and photo program that we use to see if videos and photos are fake or real. There's also a historical weather site that we use and 2 astronomy sites that we use. I'll send you all that information and I'll help you with your case. You know what I mean? When you're ready.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Okay.
Right,
well,
thank you. Thanks for having me on, man. It was a good conversation. Talking about
stuff. I enjoyed this. Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording. Stop the show here. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. If you watched this for the entire thing, congratulations on you, and thanks for sticking with it. I'll see you all soon. I'll talk to you soon, Jesse. And goodbye. Signing off. May the force be with you.